We're working on our carving. It's dark outside right now. I tend to like to work on carving at nighttime, and there's a few reasons for it, and we'll go through them. Most of the time I can see lights and shadows better. I can see chips and dents a little bit better. Also, autobody guys use, like, you can take a flashlight, and I won't do it now. I won't turn all the lights off, but I'll turn all the lights off, and I'll come in with a flashlight and shine across, and many, many times you'll see little chips and dents that you cannot see in the daytime. Much, much easier to do it then. On our main body of our carving, this is kind of a simple layout like on the Andreas Albright, the Edward Marshall rifle. Basically a simple volute coming off with some tendrils and some floral stuff. This gun's going to get a lot more in-size accent lines to the carving, which will make it pop a little bit more. And what I do is I draw my main body on and I cut it, normally with a knife like this, down. We use multiple knives that are like that to help cut the background. And when you're coming in to cut the background, you want to be cutting your curl sideways if you can. Cut across the curl, because when you see a curl line, it means the grain's coming up and the grain's going down. So it depends on at what point you catch it. It may chip down or it may chip back. So you have to be real careful. Keep your knife super, super sharp. I don't care what it is. Much, much easier to do a cleaner background. Take your time, cut it all out. I use scrapers to come back in. You can use them as a depth gauge if you're trying to keep like your moldings symmetrical. It'll give you actually a measuring stick to know how deep you're cutting your moldings or your carving. You can come through. But you can change your angle. So you'll see the gun's kind of has a pinkish hue to it. As I've shaped this gun, I have raised this grain at least 3 or 4 times in the process, even before we started putting the carving down on it. And once we get the carving put on, as we're putting water on it, we put a tiny bit of wood stain in that water. What it does is you have this pinkish hue that comes up. So when I'm looking at the body of the carving, I can tell exactly where I have not cleaned up as of yet. So we know we haven't gotten into this volute. We haven't cleaned up in here. Also, you don't see a lot of detail in here. We've cut the lines so we see them, know how the flow is going to play out. But it's not time to cut. I used to cut this entire thing, detail it, in-size cut it, everything. And then when you put your water and your finish to it, all of a sudden it turns into a big shaggy dog. And you're like, wow, I've lost all my detail. So you have to go back in with knives again, try to reclaim what you had before, which looked really good. What I learned years ago is just don't try to do all that. Go through and cut the outside body where you're moving the most material right out of the gate is the place that's going to raise up the grain the most. So why not cut the body out, go ahead and raise the grain, clean the body out around it. All the inside pieces can wait until later. Once you've done this a couple times and I could put water on this white section here and I bet it hardly fuzzes up whatsoever. I use scrapers. We got multiple ones here of different shapes, different sizes, little tiny guys. You can also come in with your carving knife. Your carving knife is a wonderful scraper. You can get in these corners and pull that out. Also, the back of the spine you can sharpen up with an edge, not a sharp edge, but just a flat edge, because the scraper itself is not sharp. I can rub that. It's not cutting anything. What it does is I sharpen the scraper down on the stone like this, perfectly flat. What it does, it puts a real fine burr edge on these two sides, and you can feel them. And if you want a finer, smoother surface, what you do is you use a finer stone and then cut the burr and then do it again and then come off, and it gives you just that. I don't want it super, super aggressive because I don't want lines that are coming off of your cutter. If this is really, really smooth, when you come in here and you start to, and you can see as we're working, we can just walk right across the cheek piece and you start seeing the color go away. And you just keep moving across. Now, if it was super, super aggressive, it'll start putting grooves in there that we really do not want. I tend to not use any sandpaper on a gun other than about 240 grit. I don't find that any finer than that, it doesn't seem to help a lot. It doesn't give me anything I'm looking for. But I can go through it like this, and then once the grain's raised up a number of times, The advantage with a scraper is the scraper is actually cutting that grain surface. So when it fuzzes up, the scraper will actually cut that off, where if you use a piece of sandpaper, it tends to push that back down into the open pores of your wood. Well, what will end up happening when you put water back to it, those little fibers will still come back up because you haven't actually removed them. You've actually pressed them down in there to some degree, where when you come through with your scraper, you're actually cutting off those little fine grains. And you don't want to keep doing, you see I'm doing very, very light cuts across there. I'm not looking to remove a lot of wood. I'm not trying to get very far down in. I just want to take the surface. Another thing I like is the old antique guns, you feel that curl, you feel that grain structure when the grain raises, even though it may be kind of smooth. You'll get that washboard effect from a scraper. So you have to be careful when you're cutting it. If you like that, that's fine. You can use a very aggressive scraper. Once we get all this cleaned up to the point, we could put water to it and raise the grain, and it has almost no fuzz to it whatsoever. We'll go through in detail, and that's about where we are now. We're going to go through in detail all these florals and tendrils and come across. Not so much on the incise lines. We'll wait on those one more time down the road. So we're gradually, you start out with the bold side of it, then you do a little more refined detail, then you come in and do your incise towards the end. And that way you're not fighting raising the grain up multiple times on your little fine details. So hope this helps, guys. We're going to keep chugging along on this. We will have this gun ready for the Artisan Show, the first part of February. We'll have it out on display. Actually, it's kind of a spec gun. I started it back in January of this past year, and as of now, just kind of playing around with it between orders, and I'm having fun with it. It's been an interesting gun. We put this piece of bone inlay in here. This piece of wood was just a little bit over 2 inches, 2 1/8, maybe not quite a quarter. It didn't have quite enough cheek piece popping out on. And I like this. I've done this before, seen it on originals. So what we did is we put this in here. So the wood plank only came to that line, but this actually raises and brings that cheek piece up a little bit. Gives it kind of a neat detail. This is actually a buffalo bone from a buffalo I shot years ago. So here's where we are as of today. Bye, guys.